Smash Bros is one of those series that is universally loved. Whether you play it casually or you've devoted your entire life to being better than your friends, just like Mario Kart, it's a series that anyone can pick up and play and have an incredible time. And it all started with Smash 64, which released on April 26, 1999 in North America, January 21st, 1999 in Japan, November 19th, 1999 in Europe, and January 5th, 2000 in Australia. Smash Bros was unlike any other fighting game we've ever seen. The mastermind behind Smash Bros is Masahiro Sakurai. By the age of 19, he had already created Kirby and then went on a generational run in game development. He wanted to make a game that would be fun for anyone regardless of their skill level. So he created a mock-up for a fighting game that was nothing like anyone had ever seen. Now if you look at games like Street Fighter, most characters have a health bar, and the goal is typically to beat the other player until their health bar reaches 0. But instead of going the typical route, he decided to make a percentage-based system where the more you get hit, the higher your percentage goes and the farther you get knocked back, with the ultimate goal of not bringing a health bar to 0, but to knock the person off of the stage entirely. The goal was to create something entirely unique. He wanted a game that tested people's speed and reflexes as opposed to their muscle memory. So instead of having a list of command inputs, he had the idea of tilt attacks and smash attacks. And he ended up making a fighting game that anyone can pick up and play regardless of their skill level. Of course, you can still get better by practicing, but anyone can pick up and play this game and at least stand a chance. Having famous Nintendo characters like Mario, Kirby, and Link all fight each other was a brilliant idea, and it brought fans of every single series together to enjoy one single fighting game. Now this released on the N64 at the absolute peak of the 3D graphics craze. And though this is a 2D platform fighter, it had beautiful 3D graphics for the time. All of the character models really came to life, and this was the first time we got to see some of these characters in 3D. You start off with a roster of 8 characters, but there are 4 additional ones you can unlock by playing. Now compared to other entries in the series, this is a very bland roster, but this was the first game, so it gets a pass. It had 9 separate stages for versus mode you could play on, and a short but fun single player mode. It was the first Smash Bros game. It set a great standard for the series overall, even if it was lacking in a lot of areas. And it perfectly set up the sequel, Super Smash Bros. Melee, which released on December 3rd, 2001 in North America, November 21st, 2001 in Japan, May 24th, 2002 in Europe, and May 31st, 2002 in Australia. If you or anyone you know owned a GameCube, you've most likely played this game before. It took all of the ideas from the original Smash Bros. And improved it in almost every single way. All of the original characters from Smash 64 came back along with 14 new characters. For a lot of people, this is where the series absolutely peaked. Everything you loved about Smash 64 was back and better than ever. They didn't just add characters, they also added a load of new single-player content, stages, and multiplayer content that makes this one of the best Smash games ever made. For single-player content, you had the return of Classic Mode from the original, where you fight through a gauntlet with a certain amount of lives to reach the end. You also had Adventure Mode, which had you exploring through all of the different Nintendo universes in a mode that really felt like a true adventure. You had event matches, which gave you 51 separate challenges to beat, along with even more new things like home run contest, target test, and multi-man melee to make this a one-of-a-kind gaming experience. Everything about this game is dripping with quality. As soon as you turn this game on, you get one of the best opening movies in video game history. They made a game that's truly special, and there's a reason that people play this to this day. As far back as competitive fighting games go, Melee has been around forever. Originally, Melee wasn't built to be a competitive fighter, but because of all of the game-breaking exploits you could do, it became one of, if not the best fighting games ever made. Now, it does have a pretty steep learning curve to get into, but if you put the time in, it is one of the best fighting games ever made. Super Smash Bros. Melee was the best-selling GameCube game by a pretty wide margin. For a lot of people, this is the best Smash Bros. Will ever be, and I can understand that. I have put so many hours into Melee, and I don't think I've regretted a single minute of it. Nintendo seems to not really like this game for some reason, and they've gone out of their way multiple times to make sure that people forget it exists. It's probably because this game is far more competitive than any other Smash Bros. Game is, and being so competitive, it directly counters the point of the game, which was to make a fighting game that is accessible for anyone. So for their next title, they made sure to make it as accessible as possible with Super Smash Bros. Brawl, which released on March 9th, 2008 in North America, January 31st, 2008 in Japan, June 27th, 2008 in Europe, and June 26th, 2008 in Australia. Super Smash Bros. Brawl is the odd one out in the Smash Bros. Series. When this game came out, a lot of people people were expecting a Melee 2, and that was not the case. Now, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, in my opinion, is the most overhated Smash Bros. Game of all time. This game is filled to the absolute brim with content, especially single player. Now, the most iconic part about Super Smash Bros. Brawl was Subspace Emissary. This was the first and really the only time we got an authentic story told in the Smash Bros. Universe. It's like the adventure mode from Melee, but scaled up to a completely new level. You get to see interesting dynamics between characters who have no business interacting with one another. And overall, it's probably the best story mode we're ever going to get in a Smash game. It also had the return of Classic Mode and Event Mode from Melee, which made it a really standout single player game. But what made it really stand out to me was the amount of collectibles in this game. Not only were there trophies, but there was also stickers and CDs to collect. And of course, my favorite thing ever added to a Smash Bros. Game, the Masterpiece Mode, which allowed you to play demos of classic games like The Legend of Zelda, Mario, and Kid Icarus, all inside of Smash Bros. Brawl. Now, there were some areas where this game did lack, especially in multiplayer. It really lacked a lot of balance, with Meta Knight being one of the most broken characters in Smash history, and they slowed down this game so much compared to Melee, it feels like an entirely new game. Along with the addition of the tripping mechanic, and it really feels like they were trying to make this the least competitive Smash game in history. That's not to say this game is bad or not fun, it's still a great time, but if you're looking for a competitive game, this was not it. This is where the series started to become a celebration of video game history as opposed to just Nintendo. They added their first non-Nintendo characters with Sonic the Hedgehog and Snake, which are welcome additions even if it's weird seeing Snake in this format. I never want to hear someone say that a character can't be in Smash if they can get solid Snake in this game. But to nobody's surprise, I think the biggest change to this game was the addition of final smashes. As soon as a Smash Ball would appear on screen, everybody would drop what they're doing and fight to the death for it. These powerful finishing moves were absolutely iconic. Each character had their own unique move, and they were all full of fan service. Whether it's Yoshi growing wings and shooting fireballs or Sonic going supersonic, there was something for everybody to love. The level of detail and fan service really set this game apart, and I'm surprised people hate on this game as much as they do. Brawl stands out as one of the most divisive games in the series, and I can understand it. It changed a lot of things that people loved, and it was a long time before we got a new Smash game with Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS. Which released on October 3rd, 2014 in North America and Europe, September 13th, 2014 in Japan, and October 4th, 2014 in Australia. Smash 4 is one of those games that people either love or absolutely despise. Now, the worst thing this game did was remove the idea of having a fighting game name. We had Melee and Brawl, but then we just got 4 Wii U and 3DS, which absolutely crushed me when I found this out. But beyond the weird naming scheme, this game was fine. This is the only Smash game to ever get a split release, having one version for the 3DS and another for the Wii U with varying levels of difference. They expanded the roster even further with 21 new characters, making a total of 58 playable characters in this game. New characters like Pac-Man, Mega Man, and Wii Fit Trainer all made their debut in this game. And this was also the first Smash game to get DLC, and it added iconic characters like Ryu from Street Fighter, Cloud from Final Fantasy, and Bayonetta from Bayonetta. And as much as some of these characters absolutely destroyed this game, they were great to see. It had a good amount of new features, like the addition of 8-player Smash in the Wii U version, which allowed 8 people to fight at the same time. Now, trying to get enough controllers to make this work was a bold idea, but it's still one of the most creative and fun decisions Smash has ever made. Having 8 people on one stage beating each other down was absolute chaos, but so much fun. They also had some version exclusive modes, so if you had 3DS version, you could play Smash Run, and if you had the Wii U version, you could play Smash Tour. Now, I don't love the fact they were making version exclusive content. Smash Run is one of the most fun games we've ever gotten in Smash Bros, and I really wish that was available on the Wii U version. The 3DS version wasn't bad at all, but playing on limited hardware makes it hard to enjoy that mode as much. And Smash Tour was fine, it just wasn't nearly as good as Smash Run was. I think the biggest problem with this game is that they made it a divided experience. Now, the game sold way better on 3DS, and I'm not surprised the Wii U wasn't the biggest success in the world, but I would rather have one game that felt like a full experience than have 2 games that didn't. By separating content to the different versions, they made it so neither felt like a complete experience. And it really stinks because I feel like this game had potential to be way better than it was. That's not saying it's bad, in fact I think this game plays a lot better than Brawl does. They sped it up and got rid of the tripping mechanic to make it feel like a more competitive game. Nowhere near as competitive as Melee, but much better than Brawl was. But it just suffers from a lot of design choices I don't agree with. I really want someone to explain to me why they didn't include a full single-player story again. Most people's favorite part about Super Smash Bros. Brawl was the fact that it had an incredible story mode, and they didn't even attempt to make something like that. And it still baffles me to this day how they didn't try and capitalize on how great it was. Even if the story didn't end up being as good, I would have have loved some sort of single player content, especially considering Brawl was full of it. It's definitely still a Smash game, but it's not as competitive and fun as Melee was, and it wasn't as single player driven as Brawl was, making this kind of fail in every aspect. But the biggest problem this game faced is how wildly unbalanced it was. Especially when they started releasing DLC characters, Bayonetta and Cloud absolutely took over and became really the best characters in Smash history. Bayonetta is arguably the most broken Smash Bros. Character of all time. Every time I played someone online and they were playing Bayonetta, I just knew I was going to get absolutely throttled. But Smash 4 wasn't a bad game, it just suffered because they tried to do too much with two different versions. I feel like it really would have benefited by being one single release and not having to split content between the two different versions. But it did a lot of things right and is still a really good game, even if it's the worst Smash game in my opinion. But the most recent game is where the series really started to shine for the first time in a long time with Smash Bros. Ultimate, which released worldwide on December 7th, 2018. I will always be thankful that they didn't just port Smash for the Wii U and 3DS over to the Switch, and they made a new and full experience for the Smash Bros. Community. They easily could have given this the Mario Kart 8 treatment and ported over the old version with some enhancements and called it a day. But they built something truly special here. I think everybody remembers exactly what they were doing when they saw the legendary words appear on screen, "Everyone is here." Every single Smash character from the history of the series was brought back to this game, and it was the most hype I have ever been in my life. It has a roster of 89 playable characters from across gaming history. From 2018 on, whenever there was a Nintendo Direct, people would be sitting on the edge of their seats waiting for an announcement of a character. The world broke when characters like Banjo and Kazooie, Sephiroth, and Sora were all announced. They even brought Steve from Minecraft into this game, and it really cemented the fact that Smash Bros. Is a celebration of gaming history rather than just a Nintendo fighting game. It took everything that was great about all of the other Smash games and blended it into one perfect package. If you're a fan of the competitive side of Melee, you'll like this game because it's the second most competitive Smash we've ever gotten. If you're a fan of the single player content from Brawl, this game is perfect for you too. It has World of Light, which even though it's a diet version of Subspace Emissary, it's still a really good time. And the sheer amount of challenges to do and spirits to collect made this something that you can play for years on end without getting bored. Smash Bros. Ultimate really lives up to its name and became the ultimate Smash Bros. Experience for anyone to enjoy. Now, it's not a perfect game by any means, but it's probably the biggest Smash Bros. Experience we're ever gonna get. My only problem with this game is I don't know how they can move on from here. Nothing will beat the idea of everyone is here. And if they don't add all of these characters back in the next game, people are gonna be disappointed. Now, I could see the idea of a return to form and cutting a lot of these characters, but people are gonna miss some of their fan favorite characters if they do that. If they make another Smash game and I can't play as Sora, I'm going to be devastated. There is so much to do in Smash Bros. Ultimate, and it makes it one of, if not the best Smash game in history. Though it really depends on what you like, Smash Bros. Ultimate has everything you could possibly want in it. But whether you love the competitiveness of Melee or the single-player experience of Brawl, Smash Bros. Is a series that is full of content for everyone to love. There's a reason this series is held to the highest possible standard a video game can be held to. It is one of the best series of all time, and I'm really excited for them to have a new game come out in the future. And as always, thank you for watching. I hope that you and your family have an incredible rest of your day, and if you like anything that you saw here, please consider subscribing.